In the previous lecture, we looked into externality as a cause for market failure. And market failure is a situation where market is unable to reach the optimum outcome. And by optimum outcome, we mean the situation where consumer surplus and producer surplus, which together known as total welfare, is maximized. In today's lecture, we will be focusing on a special kind of goods called public goods as a cause for market failure. So till now, we primarily talked about two different kinds of market failure. Market failure because due to monopoly, market failure due to externalities. Now we are going to talk about market failure due to public goods. Now, before we get into details about public goods, we need to define certain characteristics of goods. First of those characteristics is excludability. That means whereby a person can be prevented from using a good. For example, you can prevent a person from entering your house, right? It's your private property. Or you can prevent a person from entering the Siena College campus. Or you can prevent a person from attending a class. So these are the places where somebody could be excluded exclusively from using certain things. However, there are goods which are non-excludable. For example, fresh air. You cannot exclude somebody from breathing fresh air. Or you cannot exclude somebody from taking fresh sunshine unless until you imprison somebody, which is again not a normal situation. So there are certain goods which are excludable and there are certain goods which are non-excludable. Then there's another concept which is called rivalry in consumption. Rivalry means that if one person uses something, that means it diminishes the other person's use. For example, if you are having a burger, you cannot have another person having the same burger at the same time. Or if you are riding a bike, you cannot have another person riding the same bike. You can have somebody in the back, but you cannot have somebody on the driver's seat. So it's important. On the other hand, a good example of non-rivalry in consumption is something like open road. You can have multiple people going on the open road, which doesn't affect each other's usage, or people fishing in an ocean or in a pond, right? You can have a certain number of people can fish in the same pond at the same time. So these are the examples of non-rival consumption. So using these characteristics of excludability and rivalry in consumption, we are going to define different goods. So let's start like this. So we'll measure the character called rivalry in consumption here, and we measure so if it says yes, that means some goods can be excludable. If it is yes here, it means that good is rival in consumption. If I put no, that means a good is non-rival in consumption. And if I put no here, that means good is non-excludable. So till now, we only talked about a particular kind of goods, which is called private goods. And most of the goods in economics are private goods, which are excludable and non-rival. Which are excludable and rival. And good examples is burgers, then clothing. So these are good examples of private goods. That means if one uses it, you can exclude somebody from using it, and also the moment somebody uses these goods, that means same good is not available to somebody else. There is another genre of goods which are called club goods. So club goods are non-rival in consumption, but they are excludable. For example, fire protection. You can exclude people from getting a fire protection, but once you protect it, doesn't matter how many people you are protecting. Or cable TV. So obviously, if you subscribe to a channel, you can get it. That means there's an excludability clause, but there's no limit on how many people are watching a television series in your Netflix or Amazon Prime. So these are the examples of club goods which are excludable but non-rival in consumption. There's another kind of goods which is called common resources, which are rival but non-excludable, right? Fish in the ocean, environment. So these are common resources which are non-excludable but rival in consumption. And finally, there are something called public goods. An example of public goods are, say, tornado siren. Now these are goods which is non-excludable and non-rival in consumption. When a siren goes on, during the tornado, you cannot exclude people from hearing it, and it doesn't matter how many people are hearing the same. Similarly, national defense. So national defense is non-excludable. You cannot just say like I'm going to protect this individual person and I'm not going to protect that. If a country is protected, everybody is protected. So they are non-excludable and non-rival. So all goods can be classified into these 4 different categories using the criteria of excludability and rivalry in consumption. Now, we have primarily focused on this particular one, which is public goods. Now, we'll not talk about much about club goods or common resources in this lecture, but obviously private goods are the normal goods which we have been talking about till now in all of our lectures. So why public goods is an issue? The first issue with public goods is a free rider problem. That means person who receives the benefit of a good but avoids paying for it, hence prevents the private market from supplying the goods. A good example perhaps I can give you is our public education system. In the public education, obviously, like you cannot prevent people from using the public schools, right? If they have kids in the family at a certain age, they can always attend the public school. But at the same time, the question arises how to pay for it. That's why we have government have school taxes, but people can avoid those taxes for different reasons. So there's no inherent incentive to pay for the schools. Similar things free rider problem can arise in your, suppose you are working in a group, and often perhaps you have seen a situation where 3-4 people working in a group and there is one person who is not putting enough effort because they know that those people cannot be excluded from the group, and those people are going to get all the benefits of that group. That means this is non-excludable and non-rival in character. So free rider problem is a huge problem of public goods, and as a result we need some kind of intervention, especially by the government, to provide these goods. Again, good examples could be roads under certain conditions, could be public good, for example roads where there are no tolls, that means anybody can get into those roads, and generally roads which are empty is non-rival in consumption. So what role the government can play in public goods, which is like if total benefits of public goods exceeds its cost, which essentially means that we should be provide the public good and we need to pay for it using tax revenues and make everybody better off. So instead of relying on market, we have government regulations or government provides certain services. For example, as I said, national defense is provided by the government because you cannot have individuals paying for it separately, because nobody will have an incentive because they know that they cannot be excluded from the benefits of national defense. That's why it needs to be paid collectively through taxation. Same argument can be made about public schools, or same argument can be made about, say, NASA. Why NASA is publicly funded? Because it has huge benefit for the society, but nobody wants to pay for it because they know that they are going to get the benefit of it, because the benefits of NASA are non-excludable. And that's why we need government or some kind of public body to finance this kind of consumptions.